controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are AsapSCIENCE here to make things make sense.
So we do so much science research, and so we thought, because we've sort of been conglomerating and changing our lives around a lot of the science-backed tips, that we would share them with you. We're going to go in order, back and forth.
Yeah, we thought it'd be fun. Like, I think sometimes the like hack world can be a bit of a hack, no pun intended. And not that we're like trying to be like, okay, here's like the hardest science, but I think we thought it might be nice to talk about the ones that are backed by science, but that anecdotally we've also experienced on our end.
Yes.
Like done and has actually changed our lives for the better.
Okay. I'm going to go first.
Okay. What's your first hack?
So this is something that I learned in a neuroscience class in university and has never left me, which is that novelty and new experiences slow down your perception of time. So the best way to think about this is like, I was going to say analogy, but it's just the truth, which is like if you're going on a hike to a viewpoint and back, like say you get to a park and like, oh, I'm looking at the map. Okay, we're going to hike all the way to up here. We're going to take this gorgeous view and then we're going to walk back. It always feels like when you're walking back that you're walking quicker, that it took less time, that it was easier. And the reason for that is because you've actually already been on that path. When you are walking to your destination and it's the first time you've walked the path, your brain is having to essentially, quote unquote, work harder. It's wondering where it is. There's a bit of anxiety. Are you going the right way? You're looking.
It's like processing way more information.
Yes. And you're not even necessarily aware of it. Like you might just be chatting and playing like 20 questions, but like you innately, neurophysiologically have to do more work. And it feels like walking there takes way longer. When you're leaving, you know the path you're taking. You know you're going to be safe. Your brain processing power is essentially like decreased and the time goes faster. So for me, it's like whenever I'm having, I don't know, anxiety about life passing me by.
Yeah. I'd say that's like the biggest part, especially for me, that you've brought this little hack into my life, is that it's useful as we age and as time feels faster and faster. And part of that is the same kind of metaphor or analogy or real thing where like you're having way less new experiences. Like you're not learning a new language. You're not like traveling for the first time ever. You're not meeting people from a different part of the world for the first time ever. Like,
but I think the more like the simplest one too is like pizza. When you're a kid and you have pizza for the first time, it's mind blowing.
It's, like, so
it's
thrilling.
pizza. What's this? It's pizza. Your brain is like pizza. And then as you age, you eat so much pizza. So people are like, how come when I was younger, did it feel like time was going so slow? It's like, oh yeah, your first kiss, the first time you have sex, the first time you smoke marijuana. Like these things are like mind blowing and they
super novel experiences. Yeah.
As you grow up, it's harder to even have novel experiences because you've just experienced so much more.
So how do you force yourself to have novel experiences?
So one thing I think about is like going to see a movie. Like I know that sounds insanely easy, and I think that's part of the reason why I think about it is like when I'm just at home and thinking like, oh god, life's passing me by, just the idea of like getting on my clothes and going on the subway to go to the movie theater, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get on the subway, which I've done a million times, but it's always new people. It's always still a new experience. Maybe like someone does something crazy, maybe you see a friend, whatever, like that's still different. Then getting to a movie theater, the experience of the movie will always be different. Like the actual just act of maybe walking through the mall on the way there, it's like just going to a random store. Like things like that I think sometimes people can contextualize as work, quote unquote, like doing something.
Right, like you have to like put effort in to get something out a little bit. Yeah.
Like recontextualizing it. I think about it a lot. You can feel the other way, right? You can feel overwhelmed. You can feel like, oh my God, I had such a crazy day. I'm exhausted. I need to like, that's not when I use this hack. I use this hack when I'm like, everything's going.
Like feel things slow down and you want to like,
And sometimes it's interesting because I think people who are super busy and maybe doing a lot of new things, you can have anxiety like, oh God, I have to go maybe to a new building today to do a new appointment. Like, sometimes it can help with that.
That's
it's
true.
Like
I've actually never thought of it like that.
I'm going to be slowing down time.
Yeah, that like stressed me out in that moment. I was like, oh yeah, like I hate the idea of like if I have to go somewhere and like say I need to take a car for some reason and have to park it in like downtown Toronto, like I'll have so much anxiety about going to do that.
That's one thing
I would never ever. I've never thought to be like, okay, well at least it'll be a new experience.
That's a hard one, like because
that's true because it's also not that rewarding.
No, and I'm like, as much as you're right, that is a really good switch of like it's gonna be a new experience, but I'm like that's
like I don't want it.
Yeah, like,
but it is interesting to think about how so many like stressful experiences often end up being really core memories or like things that like of course like it's not great when it's like traumatic, but when something ends up working out but you were very stressed in the moment, whether that's even just like doing a speech in front of people, like you get really nervous and then you like have these distinct memories of these times where your body's fight or flight was activated. I feel like that is actually like your brain encodes those memories more intensely.
Also traveling, it's like the main reason I travel because truly there is no bigger time distortion than when you go to a new city and you're like, how the hell is it only 4 p.m.? I've gone to a museum. I've experienced what a sidewalk looks like in Mexico City, which is completely like, it's unbelievable how long days feel when you travel to the point that sometimes I'll go somewhere and I'll be there for one day and be like, I could go home.
Yeah. Like you feel like you had a full experience.
Yeah. I'm like, I've been here for a week and then you go home and a week flies by like this because you're just everything
into
is
habits.
The same. Your brain is not having to process.
Which is like nice. Of course you have to like balance it out because for me, I think habits and having a flow of something allows you to ease into life sometimes. And if you're always putting your body through like a lot of stressful things, it can be a lot. But overall, I definitely agree. It's even one of the reasons that, not like the reason, it's taken me a long time to like want to have kids. Like not that I didn't want them, but to like have this desire to have kids.
Yeah.
Is like starting to hit me. And I know that's like normal for people as they age. Like they're maybe more, but I'm starting to feel like, and hearing people's expression of having kids and how they let you see the world through a new way. Not only in and of itself is it like this crazy new experience that's quite stressful and like you're taking care of creatures that like, you know.
Yes, it's a novel experience.
It's a log,
for sure.
and every day, like people say there's so much more. Yes, time still can go fast, but you can distinctly be like, I remember when they were 2.
Yeah.
Like you have these benchmarks that as an adult in their 30s, you sort of start losing. Like in your 20s, there's a lot of benchmarks, right? Like you leave high school, you go to university, you graduate university, you get your first job, you have your first whatever serious relationship, your first firing, or you lose your job or you switch jobs. Like there's a lot. You move to another city. 20s are like a really big time in your life that all these different
have novel experiences.
Yeah, or at least even like very distinct time settings. Whereas once you hit your 30s, like you kind of settle into life where things, not that things will be the same for the next 30 years, but they could be. You know, like you could have like the same rough schedule of things if you keep the same job. So,
but it is like so. I'm like even just thinking about it now because I'm like, we're gonna go away next week just to get out of the city, and sometimes I'm like, is that worth it? Like it's expensive. Like what is the point? But it's like, no, this is the point. It will slow down time. I'm gonna be in a new environment. I'm going to go on new hikes. I'm going to be in a new small city in Ontario. And I'm going to have those days feel like 5 days, even though there's only going to be 2. And that is nice because you're only alive on this planet for so long. Why not? It helps you get over the hurdle to do new things, which can be some of the scariest things in the world because you're like, I'm slowing down my perception of time. I'm essentially living my life longer.
I think it's easier when you know the payoff will probably be there. Like that's why traveling's such a good one because most people, at least in my experience, end up having a really good experience when they travel. Right. True. And you hear that, and like now that we have traveled, we know, okay, you put a lot of work in and it is anxiety, and you go through an airport and you have to like land in this place where you're not sure, but we've done it before and you know there's like this big kickback payoff.
Well, I would argue that it's sort of part of our go back to this episode we're going through years ago about all-inclusives. For like part of my issue with all-inclusives is that it's so repetitive and that I don't get that slowed down time. I actually leave going, oh my God, that went so fast because, you know, not everyone is traveling and looking for novelty. Sometimes it's about a vacation and it's like
to turn off.
A complete opposite. And they might have that feeling of, it's another reason to think about what are you traveling for?
That's true.
If you're traveling to turn your brain off and have it maybe go by real fast as a negative aspect of it, go to an all-inclusive because it's actually like, oh, volleyball again or oh, blah, blah, blah.
It ends up being the same thing after a while. The first couple of days feel like they last forever and then you like get into it.
And I think a lot of people feel scared about going on travel experiences that will be very novel. And I think that for us, one benefit of doing that and taking that risk and getting out of our comfort zone is because we're like, we are going to feel slowed time.
Well, I also like, time's just so weird. It's such that it's one of the things that's always just on the forefront of my brain as like someone who's
oh God, I think about it all the time.
In my 30s and feeling like, okay, literally how right now is it the middle of March?
Yes.
And it feels like literally we just hit 2023.
And think about when we lived in Colombia, how long those 2 months
even
felt.
after
it was
the
crazy.
first 2 weeks, we were like, we feel like we've lived here for months.
And I still think of like, when I think about November to December 31st of last year when we lived in Colombia and traveled South America, I'm like,
another lifetime.
That was a year of my life. It is astounding like how distorted my perception of time is around it.
Well, even thinking of like when we were in university and the amount of time that felt like, and when we lived with roommates out after university, it was really only for like kind of a couple years, but it feels like we lived together for a decade with them.
Yeah. Then being in our home right now where we do the same shit.
Yeah. So it is, it's a nice reminder to just like find ways, big or small, that can trigger that, especially if you have time anxiety.
Totally. And it's like, why would I go sign up for this random course 2 hours a week? What a waste of time. It's like, no, those 2 hours are going to feel like 5. You're creating life. You're creating time in your life in some ways.
Yeah, and don't they say that is like one of the biggest risks of retirement if you're not keeping mentally active and doing your things is that like you can lose it.
Yeah,
you know
or
what I mean?
no, but also your time would start going faster. When's a time when you don't want time to go faster?
Yeah.
When you're
well, I mean, I
older.
just mean like it's really good for your brain ultimately to do something new, even if that is learning something new, a language or taking a course. It's challenging, but it's actually like gives you these like time checkpoints and perspectives that
even like reading. I mean, we need to move on, but even like when I read New Yorker articles, I'm like, okay, well, my time is distorted because I just learned something new rather than going on my phone and looking at the same person's fucking thirst trap.
Phones?
Okay, move on. Phones are evil. We have other episodes about that.
I'm really having a hard time with my phone.
Okay, do you have a hack one of our phones? Or
no, I don't have a hack on phones, but because I actually was like, I need someone to help me with this. So that's another question in another episode, and I know we've done these, but
we're doing research
I need
on
a
it
hack
now.
to stop using my phone because I can't figure it out, and I hate it. Okay. My number one hack and obsession obviously is sleep. I always talk about it. So many of my What to Learn this week are about sleep. And I was trying to think like, what's the biggest hack for my sleep that's made the biggest difference in my life? I used to be somebody who was always tired, who used to wake up every morning. I'm not saying like I'm not tired anymore, but I used to wake up all the time so tired, could barely get out of bed. Always felt groggy. I remember when we first started AsapSCIENCE, I was just like, I always feel tired. I'd talk to my doctor and be like, I always feel tired. Is something wrong with me? And I think the biggest hack that I took on was sleep schedule. Literally bed at the same time, wake up at the same time as much as possible. Of course I break this. Of course there's weekends when I'm up way later than I normally would be and I either sleep in. I mean, now I'm at a point where I have a hard time sleeping in because I have such a like 8 a.m. is usually my wake up time, or like between 8 and 9. So it's like my body will still wake up even if I go to bed late.
But you break your sleep cycle in awareness. Like we go like on Friday
to
nights,
know
we
it's
were
a
like,
bit of a sacrifice.
We're gonna stay up till 1, and then on Saturday we look at each other and we're like,
I regret it.
We stayed up till 1. Like it's like the awareness of the sleep schedule. break.
But honestly, it is a game changer if you're somebody who is a tired person, because not only does it prime your body to be up at those times and like be tired, it also primes your body to fall asleep, like to actually like. And I have always been good at falling asleep quickly. Like this is something we always laugh about because I fall asleep in like seconds. But I honestly think before it was because I was so sleep deprived. Like I had once heard, if you can fall asleep in under 5 minutes, like you have a sleep disorder or you're sleep deprived. Like it's not normal to be able to start dreaming immediately, whereas I would feel like I would like go into deep sleep immediately. Now I feel it's more like my body just is like, this is when you go to bed. And that makes life a lot easier.
And you used to have a really, you used to actively not have a sleep schedule.
Yeah,
in an interesting way. You were like against it. Also,
here's the challenge. Okay.
Like I also like remember thinking like when I was in university, I was like crazy. Like I would like get drunk and party and I guess that's pretty much it. Just get drunk and party. But like it was like that's what I would be doing. And if I wasn't doing that, I would be trying to go to bed at like 10 or 11 and having a normal. Whereas I feel like
I was like up till 5 a.m.
Your whole thing
alone.
was like, I'm not drinking or partying, but like as a group of friends, like our friends were different. Mine were like smoking weed and like listening to like Justice and thinking we were like cool hipsters. Your friends were more like
let's play board games till 3 a.m.
But there was still this part of what you were doing that I found exhausting.
Right.
Which was like your inability as a group of people to your ability to ignore a sleep schedule. I was like, I will ignore my sleep schedule when I'm wasted.
Right.
But like outside of that, I have a lot of anxiety about trying to sleep.
I think this is what I was going to say is I wasn't at the time so ignorant of a sleep schedule. I think what happened is I was at that time in my life naturally a night owl. And so many, not so many, but some of my friends were as well. And over time, I had to force myself to become more of a morning person and like a regular hour person. And so I was caught in between wanting to stay up late because it was kind of like my natural proclivity and then having to wake up early.
Interesting.
So it was like this dichotomy for me, whereas you have always been a morning person, I feel. And so to see me staying up so late would like if I could have my way, it would be like when I was young, I would have woken up at noon every day and gone to bed at 2 a.m. every single or 4 a.m. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's.
And there was a time when I did literally go to bed at 4 a.m. like every day.
I guess what I just noticed was the ability you had to. You used to just sleep so all over the place. Like I just think like this is an interesting sleep hack for you because you never had an ingrained sleep schedule motive. It was like always wild for me. You'd be like, oh, I'm going to bed. And I'd be like, it's 9 p.m. Or you'd be like, oh, I'm going to bed at 3. Like you would just were able to be sporadic. Which I always liked. Amazing.
I thought like not that that's like a spontaneous person. Like I was never considering myself like so spontaneous, but with those kind of things, and to this day we've struggled with this. Like I hated the idea of having like the shackles of a schedule. Like even with a calendar and stuff, it makes me feel confined. Even now, like over planning in my schedule makes me feel trapped.
I am so
you're the opposite. Like you'll be like schedule every hour in your calendar. You like know what hour you're working
and
on.
And I love it. Without it, I'm like, I'm gonna barf.
And I've learned to appreciate it in a certain degree, but now I can see like if it's even too much, it still is like I need the flexibility to go like I actually am kind of feeling it not this way today, so I need like 3 hours of a bit more just like time to take a break now. And
but the sleep schedule is the one thing you can hold yourself to. You still have the whole all the hours in the day to do whatever, but at least you now know I go to bed at this time and I get up at this time and I feel better.
And it makes a big difference. And it sadly I did have to convert to like I'm not a bright and early like morning person. Like 8 a.m. is pretty late for a lot of people, or 9 a.m. even. But it's like a consistent schedule, and it's closer resembles like what average person's workday looks like.
Oh my God, I love a sleep schedule too. But I do, I guess I
think also like when you're younger, like because you never really had one when you were younger. But I feel like
I did. Are you kidding?
No, I mean like in university. Did you actually?
Oh no, but I mean
at that age, also nothing can hurt you.
Family. I remember going to bed broad daylight here in Toronto. At like 8. Like my family, I think I was raised sleep schedule for them. I think not for me. Like I mean, maybe they were looking out for my developing brain, but it was really so that they could have.
They're like
organized
leave us alone.
Yes. Whereas I also know your family was way more chaotic.
So
and
funny.
Probably were breaking sleep schedules more
I never
often.
really thought about that. Yeah, definitely. If you have kids, I'm gonna be like, 6 p.m. is your bedtime, so we can have the night off.
Yeah, like daddy's got to light a candle and masturbate.
Oh my God.
Like I don't know what parents do.
All right, moving on.
Yes.
Hack number 2.
So this one is like. Everyone's probably read Atomic Habits. It's like #1 Indigo bestseller. And it is a pretty good book.
For all the CanCon out there, Indigo is like Canadian bookstore.
Barnes and Noble? Like what are the other ones?
The equivalent.
Yeah. I guess some people like to call it Amazon or whatever. But it's such a popular book. And I had my like, I'm going to habit stack meditation with my coffee every morning. Like while reading the book, I had a crazy life, and then none of them stuck.
So many. Yeah.
This is the only one that stuck, which is that I listen to my funny and enjoyable podcasts while only working out or painting. So it's like I habit stack
something that you
podcasts,
want to do with
yes.
something that you wish you would do more almost.
Yes. And so it's like, okay, I can still listen to the news and I can still listen to
Outside of those activities.
Not to drag other science podcasts, but science podcasts, like podcasts. I'm like, thank you to everyone listening. Sometimes science podcasts are work in the sense that like they're making me learn and think.
You have to focus.
Yeah. I have like comedians I love. I have like The Read, which I love. Like these podcasts that can actually take my mind.
Give you like
somewhere
endorphins
else.
and make you like, smile, laugh. Like
I'm like endorphins. It's more like when I listen to science podcasts, I kind of can't be doing other things. So that's
and science podcasts for us is often actually work because we're also like trying to keep up with like what are the things that we could talk about or cover or want to be on top of. Like there is
true.
I think for everyone
notes.
it's a little bit of work because it's like actually more active listening, and maybe less like funny and there's like it's a little more dry. But for us on top of that, it's actually related
it's
to
the
our job.
ones that the podcast that I'm waiting for every week, the pop culture ones, the funny ones, the ones that I'm just like, ooh, I'm excited it's coming. It's like, okay, because I'm excited, I now will only do it if I paint or work out. And it's helpful. It helps me. I have not painted the way I ever painted before this because I'll sometimes have internal motivation to paint and I'll go and I'll listen to music and I'll be stoned, not stoned, and just enjoy it like that. But there's other times where I'm like, I don't want to paint, but I want to listen to this podcast. And it's now such a routine that there I am painting. Podcast is over and you're still painting. It's like about that initial drive, and it works.
Is like an amazing.
Do you do any?
Yeah, for sure. And one's going to come up for me later, like related to ganja.
Marijuana.
And trying to like habit stack that with good things.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it is even for me, like there are times, and I'm not always so good at this, but same kind of thing. Like actually, podcasts for me they're more like a distraction. Like I don't put them on like looking forward to it. But whereas certain TV shows, like I will go do at the gym, or if I have a lot of them, it's like, okay, just be on a treadmill while you're doing it.
Oh yeah, I'm habit stacking Below Deck. That's for sure. I forgot to mention that. I will not watch Below Deck, not on the bike or treadmill, because it is actually the most repetitive, insane show. But I am in love with it, and I dream about it.
I'm trying to think of other habits, but I think it's is like actually a powerful tool. I've yet to figure out for the things that I wish I would do more, like writing music and stuff. I'm not sure how.
That's
to
tough.
do that.
Like you can't do the podcast with that
because it takes a lot. It takes
marijuana.
You would say I've tried that and it's like not a good experience for me. It's too much. It's too distracting. Yeah, I can't be listening to something. I can't be reading or focusing on something. Like it really requires all my attention.
No, what you maybe have to do is reward yourself.
Maybe the habit stack that I've thought would eventually work, but I just don't have like the skills to coordinate it is like, can I do this with somebody I enjoy my time with?
Oh,
right.
But
smart. I am like, I don't know who to do that with.
That's really intense when you involve other people.
It's especially if it's like, because I want to do more, I need then you rely on them. And then it's like, I don't know. But that would be one way to be like, it's a really fun activity. And now I'm actually working on
That's
music.
That's a good challenge. How do you habit stack something like making music, which takes your auditory? The great thing about painting is that I can listen to something and not I'm using my hands and my brain. And not, whereas you have to listen.
My ears and eyes are occupied.
Yeah. Taste. It's like, do you like gum? It's like you can only have gum.
So stupid. Okay. Help me figure it out. All right. Number 2 for me. I'm really apparently about the schedules today. Scheduled walks. Or just like regular walks for me have been
prioritizing
changing.
Walks.
Yeah.
Well, something you do that's like always impressive.
Yeah. I think like it ties into the bigger picture of physical activity that took me a really long time to learn about myself. I actually really like to be lazy, or at least I thought I did. Like mentally, it feels like the way to relax. But I've realized my body and brain, and like even more so my body, are so much happier when I have more movement involved.
You used to have this crazy thing about Sundays, which was that like they were meant for rest, so therefore you can't be doing anything. And it was a huge issue in our relationship because to me, I'm like, it's Sunday, we should
like go
to the beaches, like do all these things. And you would be like, even the thought of me asking was like, you would be upset.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it was like, I now realize you saying you were probably like, I need to relax. I need to.
I don't know why I got that in my head. I think because I've slowly, as I've aged, been better at managing my anxiety and amount of like thoughts going on in my head. So I feel that maybe I have more. Maybe at the time I just felt overwhelmed by things that the only solution I could see was to
Like
give
Sunday
myself
is
so
nothing.
much time
Yeah.
of nothing.
Yeah.
To kind of like
fair.
actually turn it off. And if I was adding in more stuff, it felt like I never got that recovery time.
Also, a walk is a great one because it's not.
Yeah,
like,
it's minimal.
Crazy.
Yeah, you're like, I can still be kind of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's one you can have it stack. You're like, I can actually listen to a podcast. I can actually take the dog
or
for a
go
walk.
with
Like,
someone.
yeah. And I mean, I actually try to go on walks without listening to things to just like let my brain wander was like my bigger goal.
I don't think I've done that since I was 12.
Really?
I'm blasting a podcast at 1.5 times the speed.
I think it's a good challenge.
It is.
Even when I run, sometimes I go, I'm going to listen to nothing.
What? You're a psycho. That's American Psycho. You run without music.
Lots of people do.
No one's ever done that.
You should try it. It's really interesting and you get to focus on your body.
focus on the fact that your body is in pain.
But that's like that's like a type of meditation. I
Okay,
think,
I'm dating a
to
fucking
work
monk.
through it.
That's crazy.
I don't do that one that often, but I have. And there was a time when I was running and I was like, I'm going to intentionally do this. And it was like cool. And it lets your brain, when you're walking at least, like explore and just
I
see
would
what comes
stop and then get a coffee. Like I would like if I was ever didn't have headphones. Yeah, right.
You
I
need to try.
can't
You of all
imagine.
people, yeah. But I think for a lot of people, there's like for me, I have really big push and aversion to like physical. I don't know.
Well,
like some
there's-
people are born with genetics that propel them towards physicality, and I definitely wasn't. Not to say like I've always been like lucky with my weight and all like and activity, and I was put into sports as a kid. But maybe it's next to you. Like you're like not a busybody, but you're an active person.
Well,
And it took
like,
me a
where
long
did
time to
that
like
come from?
overcome the hurdle of being like, I don't want to do that.
Well, we've talked about this with gym class. Like I took
Gym
gym class
class.
all
Oh.
through high school because I was like, that's a scientific hack. I get a freaking credit for running in
Right.
circles.
and I was like, I will not be hanging out with straight boys in gym
yeah, okay.
class.
Like there's obviously like the lowercase t, sometimes capital case T trauma around being in a change room. I was gay. I don't know how.
It wasn't just the
managed to do
change
that.
room. It's just like such a athleticism. It took me a long time as a gay person or queer person to feel like I belong in that space.
Interesting.
Even not just the change.
athleticism.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
feeling physically either weak or incompetent or not comfortable around like sports lingo or
I
bro
wonder
culture.
if I was doing it to overcompensate because my voice is the faggiest voice anyone's ever heard. And then, sorry, I think I've reclaimed that word. So like I say it all the time. Sometimes gay people literally look at me and they're like, "Well, I hate that guy." I'm like, "No, it's fine. Like I think it's okay to say that." But like because I was so. Everyone was calling me gay. Maybe I was like, yeah, well, I'm actually taking gym.
Yeah.
So like I don't
Proving
know if it was
yourself.
that, but I also just remember thinking like, truly, this is a lot easier than English. A lot easier than.
Yeah.
I was really obsessed with science, so I found it easy. But you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're giving me a credit. This feels like
for
cheating.
like playing games. Yeah.
Truly, like they're like, oh, now you guys are gonna play badminton for 45
Right.
minutes. I'm like, yeah, great.
I know.
down.
In retrospect, I'm like, why? For me, it really was the fear of my peers, I think.
Yeah, but I also
judgment.
think even at that age, I had something in me that was like, I need to be active or I'm gonna go crazy. Like
Yeah.
there's something about
It's your
physical
genetics. Your family
activity.
has always been like super active.
Yeah, and I know that feeling though, where you don't want to do it. Like
I
it's
don't
like,
think you really know it. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but like, of course, everyone knows when they're tired. Like, I don't want to do it, but I think there's different subsets of people, and like, it has taken me a long time to get to a place where I actively want to do any form of physical activity.
Yeah.
It's not like I had to like literally learn how to condition myself.
Yeah, no, it's
and
so
push
true.
through things that were like actually not enjoyable at first. And it's why I struggle to give advice to anyone about this, because I don't know what changed in
But
me.
that walk thing is so interesting. That's what you chose, because I've noticed that you will prioritize your walk in really interesting times. You will do it every day, and that's just an amazing start, because it isn't a run or going to the gym to lift. Like it's
right.
not.
It's easy enough.
It's easy enough, and it
And it really is nice.
Yeah, and it is like cardiovascular. Like
Yeah.
it is,
And like
it's
from
a
an
good
exercise
start.
standpoint, it's great. Like,
Yeah.
I just mean even beyond that, it's like head clearing. It's amazing.
It also is funny because like recently we were at like a pre-drink, which for the Gen Z, if you don't know, we millennials call that before you go to a bar when you drink at home with your friends. Everyone was like tequila shots, and then you were just like no, and there were new people there, and they were like no, come on, and one of our friends was like it's Mitch, he's not going to do something he doesn't want to do. Like it was just like so flat out, and then they kind of looked at me as like your boyfriend. I was like it's true. So like if you had it in you that you didn't want to do physical activity, like you have a really good strong, if you don't want to do something, you don't do it. But that could also be an issue when it comes to something like physical activity, because like sometimes I don't want to do it either, but I think about after and how much better my day will be, or whatever the feeling is about that I long for.
Yeah.
And I do think that's something that I literally heard a trainer saying in a gym recently that was like, yeah, but it's like a lot of people are downplaying, especially on TikTok and in these like muscly, insane, like unhealthy body standards that we live in. People aren't talking enough about the mental benefits of physical activity.
Right. Like, because it can get caught up in like the hyper parts of like focused on body.
Yeah, like everyone's like, this is the
physicality.
way you'll look. This is how your muscles get bigger, and it's like those things can all be a product of the other thing to talk about, which is that you will be less sad after.
Yeah.
Like according to science, like that is where the science actually kicks in around exercise, is its ability to almost be a like strong
type of therapy almost.
Yeah, therapy towards depression. Like a lot of the studies are around depression. It's not saying it's a cure, but it's something that works in some cases in studies better than actual antidepressants. But I get, and doctors and everyone gets why it's such a challenge, because it's hard. Like prioritizing a walk a day is such a good one. And you do it more than me. Like I am like, I need to go to the gym. And if I don't go to the gym, I don't necessarily go on a walk.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
No, it's nice. I think if you can do it, you should. And it is just like try and find a schedule for it.
Okay, so mine kind of relates to that. And then maybe you do one more and then we'll do a part two, because this is so juicy and we have so many. And I'm actually like, this is amazing. Like we're giving you all the goods. It's kind of like when you read a shit ton of science books and then you realize I'm like, yeah, I could have Cole's noted all the important parts from those books. So much of it is them talking about their like kid growing up. And I'm like, no, this is a book about time. Anyways, so this one is like we already talked about in this episode, and it's truly the best thing that I've ever done with my life, which is bird watching. And it's because it, from a scientific perspective, does two things. One, it forces you to meditate because you have to stop and you have to look at something around you. Two, that thing around you is nature. So if you think about like nature bathing and, you know, a lot of like Japanese studies around like actually shipping people in offices to nature, like it does, for a variety of reasons, make your parasympathetic nervous system kick into action and relax you. So like all the benefits that I get from bird watching are scientifically backed things to make you happy and calm and really make your life better. But for me, I hate this, like, how bad is it to say I hate meditation? It's like, that's so horrible. Like, that's
well, you
like,
have a hard time, I think, being still.
Exactly. So a lot of people, I think, struggle with meditation because they're maybe like me, they're like doers. And so it's like, I'm actively doing something. But even as you said earlier, like you're now in a park and being asked by me to stop walking and stare and be present. Like you were probably like, Craig, what the fuck? Like you do that when you want to do it. I'm never forcing you to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas you'll force me to do that, which I appreciate, but it is like harder than just a walk in some ways. And with the want and the passion that comes with trying to find the birds and feeling like you're doing something, it's weird. It's like you end up doing something while not at all.
Yeah, I mean that is like what meditation is for some people, but you're right, it's less active.
Yeah.
Right? Like it is,
or it feels really passive and hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
it's
and
really hard.
It is boring for a lot of people. Like, and that's totally okay. I think it's okay if meditation's boring for you and you want to find a more active version of something that can be like meditative, as painting is for you too. It's an active form of sort of like a flow meditative state. Maybe it's different in some ways, you know, but it's like,
interesting because it's like meditating you can do at home.
Right.
It's really
more accessible.
The other thing about bird watching that's so good is that it like forces you to, if you're not in nature like a park, and you decide you just want to bird watch on your walk to your friends, you're staring at the goddamn tree on that urban street. Like it's like you're literally just like constantly like eyeball going from this shrub to that person's garden. Like your eyes start ignoring concrete because it's like that's not where the bird is. Yeah. It's interesting. It forces you to just look at nature even in a cityscape.
I love looking at trees.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of just looking at a tree if you're bird watching because you're having to scan it so deeply.
Yeah.
And then you end up learning so much about trees and all these things. And it's just so interesting. And I honestly think bird watching is like the one, and I say this to people, thing in my life that has brought me so much joy with zero negatives. Like when I think about marijuana, I'm like joy, obvious negative, addiction, my lungs, whatever. I honestly I've tried to think about other things like
that
painting.
Are equivalent to that.
Like it's very isolating. It hurts my back, and if I use oil
and
paints,
you
I will
kind of
die.
Have to think about sometimes the point of it.
The point of it. You think about the product. Will I sell this? Is this my career?
Yeah.
Is this
like? Do I share these? Are these personal? Or are they for other people?
Exactly.
Who am I making this for?
Like there's nothing.
Whereas bird watching is the point.
It's like
of itself.
It's so. I'm like
same with just like being in nature. That is the point.
And I run into bird watchers all the time. Now I'm talking to people. It's not isolating. I like learn so much from strangers in the park just by having binoculars around my neck because I don't seem crazy. I'm like, oh, you know what I'm trying to do? Teach me. Like I challenge someone to start doing it and try and tell me one negative thing about it.
Do you think there's other things like bird watching that if someone just doesn't have an affinity for birds, or like are there other versions of bird watching that people can do?
Yeah, the thing is like
whether that is like getting into trees, getting into flowers, getting into insects, or like I guess I'm trying to think of like,
to be honest,
another way to engage like that.
Like I get it. Like I had no affinity for birds. Like I just want people to know I went into this like my favorite animal was whales. Like I never ever ever looked at a bird and thought before anything. So that's one thing I'll say is it's like the joy that I've gotten from it has nothing to do with like an innate passion at all.
Right.
So I think that like before being like, oh, but I don't like birds, like maybe just try it because that's not what like you learn to love anything you do.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the other day when I was in the forest with a couple of like 60 plus white people who were watching who were strangers, they were like, well, the best part of the day was the insects. Like that's what they said. They were like, so it's a really great time for insects. It's like this soil's mud luscious. You can lift up they were on to something where I was just like, I can't go there right now because I still don't really know enough about birds.
Okay.
But for sure there's levels. And I think bird watching can be a bit of a intro to what is a bird doing on the tree. It's eating insects. I think insects for sure could be it, but I think it might be a little bit more complicated and I don't know, harder. It feels like it's like the next level. But I'm harder to learn about. I'm doing a naturalist course at High Park, so that's just going to be looking at trees. Like you could get into trees.
Yeah.
But I do think from what I'm saying is that the benefit is nature and stopping and looking in nature. So it's like, it's not like, I think it has to do with nature. Yeah. It has to be insects.
I know. I want to think on that. I wonder if maybe anyone out there can think of like, are there similar things?
Like canoeing or like boat, but
that's a pretty high entry. You know what I mean? A bigger entry. Like bird watching is so nice because you can just leave your front door usually and go somewhere and look.
But even running, like walking outside.
Yeah, just walking. You're right. Yeah. Being around, just walking through a forest. But it's nice that you're getting to learn and actively engage with like what if there's a feedback system there.
Found a negative.
What?
It's that like every bird watcher is like, well, they're all dying.
Oh.
Like it is like, but to me, that's not a negative. It's like we need to always be thinking about the climate crisis. But it is really sad when like all these people who have been on the planet a lot longer are like, you should have seen High Park 10 years ago. And you're like, what?
That's really sad.
Yeah. Okay. So next, let's go.
Okay. Is this my last one for this app? Okay. Hold on. What? I need to open my thing. Okay. Mine are always like for people who are anxious and whatever, scared. I think too much. And this is not for everyone. Okay. But something that really helped me was pre-selecting my meals for half of the day. My breakfast and my lunch are the same every single day.
Really?
Every single day. And maybe there's some variation.
They are. Yeah, they are.
And because I mean, there are things that I like. Like if you get bored, you can't do this, but I usually have some variation of eggs every single morning, and then I have a smoothie every single day at lunch. It's like a protein shake kind of thing. And I just realized for me, I get a lot of choice fatigue. I overthink things. I'm always like analyzing. So if I come and if I don't have a lunch plan, I'm going to come to the fridge. I'm going to look at every ingredient available and debate like what I can make, what I feel like eating.
Choice fatigue.
Yeah. Sometimes it would mean I just would give up and not eat because I'd be like,
what?
Because I would wait to have the right answer. This might go back to perfectionism.
Oh my God.
It happens to me all the time when I want to like order dinner out. If we're not making dinner, I'm like, what do I feel like eating? That question can take me a really long time to find out. I'm like, I literally will open like a food app and scan every type of cuisine, and I slowly have to narrow it down. I'm like,
thinking about choice fatigue,
here are the 5 that I like sort of feel like. Now I have to go at their menus and see like, do they really hit the spot? Okay, that one kind of does. Let me save that to the side. I sometimes put like baskets of things like pre-ordered to just figure out, and then I go like, actually now I need to go check their Google reviews to make sure like this, if I'm on Uber Eats, isn't like tricking me with like a fake review. So I want to see that they're real restaurants and like, you know, so there's just so many steps for me, and that can be fun. Like with dinner, I don't mind doing it once in a while when I'm like, I'm going to have a special order out and it's gonna be fun. And I don't mind putting half an hour into doing this, but it's like, I just decided with work and stuff, like it's so much nicer to just have all the ingredients I need all the time for my breakfast and lunch.
Yeah.
And it's the same. Maybe I switch up, like, am I doing scrambled eggs? Am I doing sunny side up? Am I making a egg sandwich?
Yeah,
that's like kind of the same thing.
Like if you have choice fatigue or like higher levels of anxiety around ordering, like holy shit. If
Think
you're
too
someone
much.
who like
Yeah.
thinks too much about ordering food, which mine's the opposite. It's like I'll order pizza and it'll be like, this is the worst pizza I've ever had. but that's interesting that you then can like enjoy your actually quote unquote maybe what some people would think more mundane meal more easily and stay healthy maybe.
Yeah, it definitely helps with health because I like have.
If you were skipping meals, that's so bad because you couldn't.
Oh, all the time. I get headaches all the time in the afternoon because I'd be like, I just don't know what I feel like.
Yeah, so often like you'd be like, tired. And I'd be like, what'd you eat today? You'd be like, banana and eggs for breakfast. And it would be like 4 p.m. I'm like, you didn't have lunch? And you'd be like, no.
Yeah. And because we're not the greatest at having our like fridge and pantry stocked, now I always have the things for breakfast and lunch. Always.
So you don't have to worry about them not being
and being like, oh shoot, I just like can't, I have to grocery shop and now I don't know what I need and I'm starving and whatever. So I don't know, for me, and I think that can apply in other parts of my life, but I noticed food was an easy one because I found things that I just like to eat on a regular basis. It leaves dinner open, and I enjoy making dinner. And when I'm making dinner, usually work is at least over, or I only have a little left, so it's easy to just be like, this can take an hour, and that's okay.
And I get to eat the leftovers because Mitch is like, well, I'm on to my smoothie for lunch, and it's like I
never eat leftovers for lunch. I have them for dinner.
I know. I noticed that I do, and I'm like, well, I guess I get the leftovers.
Yeah, I have noticed that as well. Unless I make a huge batch of something, but recently I've just been like, no, I'll save it for dinner tomorrow. But yeah, if you're somebody who like struggles with making decisions and making choices, that was something that at least during my day alleviated a lot. Maybe it's easier for people who have like office jobs because you have to be in a schedule of making things. But when you're at home and you're just like, what's the choice, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't want to eat out all the time.
I think that's like for people to relate to that. And like, that's how you need nutrition so important from a scientific perspective that it is like, how am I going to get these like whole foods in me? And the way you're going to do it is just by repeating. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Part 2 next week. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay. We'll continue on. Hopefully these have been useful. Hopefully you can send us your suggestions.
And hopefully you've jotted them down.
Yeah. But we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.